Oh, well, good evening. I was beginning to worry that you wouldn't be brave enough to steal away this evening. I was sitting here fretting that you might be caught trying to steal away if you were brave enough to venture out. Well, we don't have time to discuss how you managed it, but be assured that it brings me great consolement that you did. Because I know how much effort it's required for me to conceal our forbidden activities and this great gift from heaven. My spirit rejoiced for the first time in years when I discovered this portal to the Spiritland. My heart immediately recognized the Banner of Light weekly journal as the elixir it has been so long seeking, and I knew that I must share it with you. It does pain me slightly to think of the risks you've taken to be able to receive this medicine, but I assure you the wager has been one worth making. For grief is too painful a path to walk alone. And Lord knows that we the bereft have been too long cloistered and quarantined. Do forgive me, but my eyes can barely believe what they behold. Betwixt romance literature, philosophical musings, and fanciful illustrations are the unchained messages of our loved ones on the other side. You see, beginning here on page 4, in a section titled The Messenger, the voices of our lost mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters, children, and lovers ring out clear as church bells. Voices too long muzzled and silenced by the forces of skepticism, disbelief, and misguided religious sentiments. But thanks to science, reason, and the gifted mediumship of Mrs. J.H. Conant, employed by the Banner of Light, we can once again experience the presence of our loved ones who are in the spirit realm. No longer will they be forced to merely skirt on the edges of our dreams. No more must we question our sanity or our piety when we sense their presence as we're moving mechanically amongst the living in our grief. Their voices have been liberated. And you know, I'm beginning to feel as if I have more loved ones on the other side than in the land of the living. As you know, I lost both of my parents in that fire, my beloved husband George and my sister Maggie to cholera, and my 2 little ones, Lisbeth and Henry, to scarlet fever. And too many others to number. As have you. Oh, where are my manners? I beg your pardon. In my excitement about this new publication, I've just left you standing there. Won't you have a seat and do your best to make yourself comfortable? I regret that I cannot host you in the parlor this evening. Surely you understand, given the nature of our clandestine activities. Charles would never permit us to invite a medium into his parlor, especially not if he knew that George is among those whom I'd hoped to contact. And I know that you certainly couldn't get permission to host a medium in your home. Yet, miraculously, the medium has brought the spirits to us. Thank the good Lord that we no longer need to suffer in silence in our rocking chairs in the corners. Although the correspondence between the spirits and the living had been so long blockaded, this brave new publication is all the evidence we need that the mail service between the Spiritland and the earthly realm is operating once again. What's that? Why, yes, I do suppose this is a very momentous occasion, not just for us, but for all of humanity. The publication of the first spiritualist newspaper, the banner of light, and I reckon today might become a holiday of some sorts. April 11th, 1857, the day the earthly realms and the spirit world were reunited. Shall we drink to celebrate? Let's. There you go. Just a little dab for me. Cheers. Thank you. Are you feeling a little more relaxed? I believe I am as well. So shall we begin? Yes, let's. Just let us clear our minds and tune into the spirits. Concentrate deeply on those loved ones you so fervently need to commune with. Yes, that's it. Close your eyes. call it to mind using all of your senses as if they were with you at this very moment, and recall the sound of her voice in that intimate moment, his signature fragrance as he enters the room, her assuaging touch, his mirthful expression, and let those feelings envelop you, and allow yourself to believe that they are present with you as in life. You can just keep your eyes closed. If that helps you tune in to whoever you're reaching out to, I can do all the reading for us. Well, it looks like the spirit communications begin with a letter from the editorial team. Would you like to hear what they have to say? Okay. The editor's note reads, "In this section titled The Messenger, we shall publish such communications given us through the mediumship of Mrs. J.H. Conant, whose services are engaged exclusively for the Banner of Light. The communion of spirits with mortals is now an established fact, not admitting of a doubt from anyone who has investigated the phenomena, which is attracting so much attention at the present time. This communion is brought about only by strict adherence to natural laws and under favorable conditions. And however anxious one's spirit friends may be to convince those that they love and have left behind of their existence and presence, without the observation of these laws and conditions, it is impossible. The presence of a medium is one of the requisites. Many people cannot consult mediums, and far more have strong prejudices resulting from false ideas of their mission. In either case, spirits find it impossible to communicate with their earth friends in a manner to prove their presence. We've been very successful in gathering valuable tests of the presence and power of spirits whose existence we never knew, for friends on earth who were equally strangers to us. So very convincing have these tests been to us and to those to whom they were sent, that we feel confident that such as we publish will be interesting to the public and bear fruits which shall prove refreshing to humanity. Communications made in this manner cannot fail to open the door of spirit communion wide and prove the fact that while the opportunity afforded to the spirit world to reach their friends on earth cannot be without effect and adding to the joys of the spirit life. Our object is to remove the prejudice existing among religion against spiritualism and show that it is sent from heaven, not to demolish the Bible, but to prove its truth. Spirits are accused of teaching immorality and upholding vice. The communications we publish will be interesting as exponents of their teachings and showing that they demand the practice of Christian virtues and always point to the way, the truth, and the life. These messages are published as communicated without alteration by us. Well, let us hope the Banner of Light is successful in removing the veil of ignorance and fear that divides the earthly and spiritual realms. The first message from the other side. Is from a woman who calls herself Mary. I've lost many a Mary, as I'm sure you have. Let's see if she belongs to one of us. Mary says, a few short years ago, I was numbered among the inhabitants of earth, and now I am a dweller in the Spiritland, and yet I often return to earth to scatter buds, which I trust will blossom in the future. I love to think of the sorrows of my earth life. For above each bud of sorrow, I can see a blessing. Oh, that the sorrowing children of the earthly plane could penetrate with the eye of faith each dark cloud and view the blessings hidden within its embrace. Oh, that the lamp of faith would burn brighter in the earth life. Those in the spirit life are often found bending over the forms of those we loved and those we still love so dearly, repeating these words, O ye of little faith. Arise, ye dear ones, put on the whole armor of faith, for the promised land is in view. Already you may hear the soft music of the angels who are constantly flitting among you, singing, Come, oh come and drink at the fountain of living waters, which is gushing forth in your midst. Do you hear that? Listen. Oh, it's the most sublime melody. Oh. Oh, the angels are indeed here with us. Oh, this is confirmation that the heavens condone our endeavors. Oh, it stopped. Oh, must it stop? I wish I could bask in the glory of that music forevermore. But I will carry that music in my heart until it beats no more. But let us take this as a sign that more edification awaits us between these pages. Next message is from D.W. or Northern Light. He begins with a prayer. O thou source from whence all wisdom emanates, I thank thee that I as an individual spirit am permitted to return to earth and manifest, although in an imperfect manner. I thank thee for the talents thou gavest me when I dwelt in my earthly temple, and I sorely regret not having used those talents to better advantage. Forgive these transgressions, O Father of spirits and of mortals, and I in return will revere thee in the elements and praise thee on the wings of the morning. O ye inhabitants of earth, this is the prayer I am constantly uttering. This is the element in which I live, and this is the element I rely upon to bear me upward to the great source of all wisdom. From Northern Light, D.W. in the Spiritland, with humility. Let us take this sage spirit's advice and apply our gifts to the full whilst we still can. Let's see. Okay, it seems as though a spirit named Louisa offers another reminder of the ephemerality of life. And she poignantly asks, "Time, what is time, but a flower that buddeth today and bloometh tomorrow? 3 years have been borne along upon the gentle wings of time, and many flowers have blossomed and bloomed since hushed voices and sorrowful faces stood around my bed and hearts bursting with grief, yet wrapped in a mantle of pure love were the gems that lighted my pathway from the material to the spirit world. And as the last cord was cut and the last farewell was given, angel faces were visible to me who had come from homes of love, light, and beauty to welcome another of earth's children to the spirit home. Oh, could the dear ones who stood around me in mortal forms have been permitted to gaze upon the angel hand which came to welcome their child, their sister, to the land of peace, they would have ceased to mourn, and methinks have joined the angels in singing praises for the redemption of another spirit from the fetters of day, the body of death. These fetters are riven. My spirit is free, yes, free to return at will to those dear ones I have left in the earth vales. When my mortal form was carried in the little church, none gazed with more anxiety than I, for I was present, though unseen by the mortals, and behold the true sorrow of fond parents as they gazed upon the relic of their child, but failed to see the spirit embodiment of that child in their midst, gazing in wonder on the scene and wrapped in joy sublime. And to you, O dear child of earth, whose hand I now guide to pen these feeble and broken ideas, I would say, high and holy is your calling. You stand as an open door between the natural and the spiritual world, and it behooveth you to keep the golden hinges of the door ever bright and well oiled with the oil of faith, hope, virtue, and love, that the angels may find easy access through you to their own dear friends on earth, and that you may be a star brilliant in the spiritual firmament. Louisa J. Cutter. What consolation it brings to hear reports that our loved ones are experiencing sublime joy and peace. I cannot imagine any greater salve for the heart, the doleful heart, than to have this confirmed. A spirit by the name of Abby would like to come through now. It says, "Good morning. I have a great desire to speak with you. I used to live on earth, not long ago either. I lived a happy life. Scarce a cloud passed over the sky above me. I lived a pure life, not a holy one. I was vain, frivolous, a great lover of fun. Mirth seemed to be the only shrine I ever worshipped at. After a while I was taken sick, and mirth ceased. Less and less came rays of sunshine on my path, and then all was doom. Dear friends encouraged me, but none said, "You're going home." They were loath to part with me, and dared not my farewell, and I was loath to go. But during my last hours, I became willing to leave. Yes, I was a merry child, with a kind husband, father, mother, sister, brothers, so many kind friends. But now I can come to them and speak to them, and they are so glad to see me, and I hear them say that you're going to publish this in a paper. So I will occasionally send a line to those I love through it. I am just as happy as ever. I would not return to earth. Not to live, though I had so many friends. I only cared to introduce myself. My name was Abby Ann Tubbs. Well, pleased to make your acquaintance, Abby. Perhaps you know my friend here. No. Well, nonetheless, Abby, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I regret that we didn't know you before in the land of the living. And may we beseech you to send a message to our loved ones that we are eagerly awaiting contact from them. I'd appreciate that. Oh. It's as if Abby heard our prayer. George, this next message is from a spirit who identifies himself as George. Could it be my George? I'm not sure I can read it. Could you read it for me? Pardon? No, I don't suppose that it would be an intimate message, not in a national publication. And that's not in the manner of my George, anyhow. What's that? Oh. Well, you do have a point. George would want to communicate with me directly, would he not? Okay, I shall read it. He says, 24 years ago, I lived in the now flourishing town of Concord, New Hampshire. I don't think this is my George. He never lived in New Hampshire, but I shall read on. And peace and prosperity were my companions, and as I reposed under my vine and fig tree, I dreamed not of future sorrow, but alas, the sun that greets us in the morning is often shadowed in the clouds at noonday. Isn't that the truth? So it was with my earth life. The sun shone very bright in the morning, but before noon it was eclipsed, and I was left in a dark place to grope my way to a brighter spot as best I could. I had friends, and they bade me seek refuge in the ship of Zion, in the church. I did go, and to my sorrow, I found they were without a pilot, and were dashing wildly among the breakers of envy, superstition, and bigotry. And I said to myself, I cannot securely remain here, and I accordingly embarked in the long boat of unbelief and soon landed upon a point of land called Infidelity. From this shore I could often see the old religious ship sailing by on the high sea of popular opinion, and was often hailed by the commander and requested to again become one of their crew. But I steadfastly refused and chose to dwell under my chosen canopy without a god or even a hope of future existence. But I was unhappy. These words resonate with me, but they are not resonant of the personage of my beloved George. He continues, I was constantly hoping for something I had never yet heard of, and one night as I lay down to rest, a dense darkness seemed to envelop me, which continued for some moments, and I began to think I had lost my natural sight, when lo and behold, a star appeared amid the darkness, which I watched with intense interest, and gradually it became larger and began to form into the shape of a human body, and soon I beheld the perfect image of my own lost child, my Annie. Doesn't sound like my George. I now arose and stood before the figure and implored it to speak to me, and it did, and uttered the sacred name of Father. Can this be Annie? Said I. It is, said the figure, and I am often with you. Then suddenly the room became filled with a flood of light, and the sweetest strains of melody that ever fell upon the mortal ear fell upon mine at that moment, and continued at least 15 minutes. I think we know what that's like. Then all seemed gradually to return to its former state, and I was left alone, but not to sleep, for I could not, but to reflect upon that which I had seen and heard, and from that moment my star of infidelity grew dim, and at last it went out entirely, and I was left adrift upon the waters, entirely out of sight of land, and I was just thinking of making sail for the Jordan of Death when my eyes were greeted with the most beautiful barge I had ever seen, and the new craft was called Spiritualism. I now turned my frail canoe from the Jordan of Death and paddled hard to overtake this new craft. Soon I reached her and received a hearty welcome from the crew, and soon was one of their number. I now began to enjoy true happiness. The promised land was constantly in view, and we were often so near that promised land that we can hear from and see its inhabitants. And thus I sailed on for 3 years until I was called for by the Great Spirit and welcomed home by my child and myriads of angels. This last great event took place in the year 1851. The boat which transported me was called Conception. Oh, this is definitely not my George. He continues, and now before I leave, permit me to say a word or two to those who are without a hope, and yes, weary wanderers of earth life, embark in this new craft of spiritualism and sail on to the promised land. Such uplifting words, though I am a bit disappointed that that wasn't my George. Perhaps he speaks later on in this book.